Many people, but before we do so, Angel, do me a favor, please. Introduce yourself, tell my audience a little bit about who you are, and of course, where they can find you.
Of course. So my name is Angel Morgan, and I work with guides and guardians, angels, archangels. I'm a free-for-all. So whoever of the light wants to come through, I let them. The difference with me is when I work, dead or alive doesn't quite make a difference to me. And I'm also an animal communicator. So everything I've just said also applies to animals. And I've been doing this for almost 30 years. I discovered my abilities at a very young age with experiences that I had. And then through magical circumstances, I actually ended up in Guatemala where they told me I was going to speak with animals. And I told them that they were on crack because I was actually a non-believer. I started out as a non-believer. I became a skeptic, and then here I am almost 30 years later, working in this field, helping people on every level, mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual, which is one of the reasons I was so excited to be here today because my work helps on such a deep level in every area of life, whether it's mental health issues or relationships, or just moving people forward in guidance and giving them encouragement and empowering them in their lives.
Perfect. So, first question for you is how did you get started in this and why?
um, Well, the why is an interesting thing because it's not something I went looking for. I didn't kind of grow up going, "Ooh, I want to be a psychic." I'm a classically trained actor, and that was my pursuit. That was my love. Only to find out later that being a creative and being a performer is as Kingsley said, uh, our safe way of expressing ourselves, because artists are a tribe of psychics and intuitive because that's how we connect. So the why I do it is to heal, to help. But I mean, honestly, there is a very selfish part of me that does it because I love to talk to ghosts. I love monsters. I love the paranormal. I mean, who gets to walk around and say, I talk to animals and they talk back? It's cool. So the bottom line is I am a healer by trade. So the way I heal is through my psychic work, by bringing through messages, by connecting to the dead. And as much as I love humans and the living, I actually do this for the dead. I do this for the spirits. So when you ask me why I do this, it's to heal, but it's to heal those who have already crossed over because they want to connect with us. As much, if not more so, than we do. And the reality is it's spirit that brings my clients to me. Clients think, oh, you know what? I need to go see a psychic today, or I need to talk to a medium today, or my dad's passed over. So, and they don't realize that a huge part of that is spirit bringing them to me.
I like that you elaborate on that because I know for many people, maybe even me at some point, when I hear this, I try to have an open mind, try to understand, but there's still that side of me or maybe that voice in me that's like, Terrain, what Angel's saying is probably a little beyond my reach or
That's
beyond my
okay. It is for me
comprehension, right?
sometimes too. It's for me sometimes too. There
Oh, perfect, perfect.
Oh yeah, there are days when I wake up going, what am I doing? Like what is going on here? Is this real? Is this in my head? And doubt is going to always be a part of who we are. And having come from a skeptic's background, I'm constantly questioning things. And I think that's particularly healthy. The fortunate part of my path and my journey is that it's validated every day. So the second I turn around and I say, is this real? Inevitably, that day, something will be put in front of me that says, how can you deny this? Right. And that's my good fortune in this. And then I teach that with young people who want to connect with their intuition or people in general. And I tell them that doubt is part of the game. You're never going to get rid of that. Right. If doubt is paralyzing, that's different. But the reality is this is beyond us because we're not nurtured this way, right? We are nurtured to touch, taste, feel, smell. And if it's not a tangible, how could it possibly exist? If we don't have the evidence in front of us, how can we say that it's real? Which is one of the reasons I love paranormal work, which again, I hated it until I was proven wrong. There has to be a limit somewhere, right? For me, it's always been that, and I've learned that there is no limitation. The only limitation we have are the ones we place on ourselves. And I was in a situation where I was with a paranormal team, and I had gone for fun because a friend had asked me to go with his team, and I had seen a spirit come down. I was watching a spirit come down the stairs, and my friend says, "Come here, take a look at this." And I didn't say anything. And I went over, and it was called an SLS camera. And on this camera, you can see little stick figures, and they're basically the heat signatures of these particular spirits, or the signatures of these spirits. And as I was looking at this character coming down the stairs, I was watching its imprint on the camera. And I thought, wait, what? How is this even possible? And it occurred to me that this piece of equipment has nothing invested in what we're doing. And yet it's registering the same things I'm seeing, the same things I'm feeling, the same things that I'm working with in that moment. And that just made me go, wow, I have evidence. There's evidence here, right? Physical, tangible evidence. It's not just me pulling things from your spirit and going, hey, here's something I couldn't possibly know anymore. Now there's a picture on a camera that's going, look, I see what you see. Right. So that's what society loves. So yeah, is it beyond us? Is it like you said, beyond you? For sure. And that's actually healthy. That's a healthy way of thinking.
When you mention like doubt and mental health, how do you help people resolve that or cure it, as you mentioned?
Well, I don't know about curing because curing comes from us. That's what I believe. As healers, we believe that everything that is unaddressed in our being has to come out in a physical way. And sometimes that will come out as dis-ease. So it could be an illness, and other times it can be mental. So a mental illness. So whether it's physical, like cancer or what have you, this is the body trying to expel things. This is the body trying to say, hey, you know what? We have an issue and you're not listening. Right. So when we look at mental illness, and I have somebody come in and they're having issues in their lives, the first thing I take a look at is how intuitive are they? Because a lot of times I find that, sorry, my dog is here. A lot of times I find that those with addictions, those who have severe mental illness, are usually high intuitives. These are people who have just not been nurtured in a way to be able to express themselves in a healthy manner. So if someone is telling me, oh, you know what, I'm hearing voices, I don't necessarily jump to schizophrenia for right away. The first thing I do is I say, okay, well, what does that look like? And I also don't work alone. I have a team of people around me. If you go to my website, you'll see that I have a neuropsycho, an what is he, a neuropsychologist. I couldn't find the word. A neuropsychologist. I work with an osteopath. I have a team of people around me, so I don't work in a bubble, which a lot of psychics do. I'm a psychic. This is what I do. I don't. I try to create a whole rounded wellness experience. So if it goes beyond me and I'm looking at somebody who has a mental illness and I'm not trained as a counselor, I will say, here's my friend Norman. Go and talk to him, right? But the first thing that we have to look at is the misalignment of our spirit. Because when we look at mental illness, that's really what that is. It's a misalignment. So we got to look at what's misaligned here. What is it that we're not willing to look at? So a really good example of that I have a young 21-year-old that I'm working with right now, and he is just beautiful. And what I love about this person is that he knows he's on his path. He knows that he's on the path of the craft. He knows that he's a witch. He knows that he's all these things, but he doesn't feel accepted. And because of that, he's hiding it. And because he's so torn, there are feelings of despair. There are these feelings of depression. There are these feelings of not being able to fit in. So our conversation is a lot about, hey, you're not alone. And here's what it's like if you are on the path in alignment. And so we've connected with him with his spirit guides and his guardians, and we've created a wholeness to his adventure. We've connected him to other people like himself. And wow, the change, the difference is outstanding. Just outstanding. And does that mean he doesn't need counseling? Absolutely not. But he was able to get to a point where now he's like, okay, you know what? Counseling isn't a negative, it's a positive, right? And it's like my friend Norman always says, he goes, people tend to go get counseling when they're in a negative space. They should be going to see a counselor when they're in a good space to know that they're continuing on the right track. And how do I stay healthy in a mental way, in a mental capacity? So for me, I always feel like the mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual have to work together. But because we don't really look at the emotional, spiritual, that's my job to set them on that track. Right now, the beauty of it is we're seeing a lot of counselors now, a lot of psychotherapists now, a lot of people now who are looking at more of that wholeness. It's not just mental, physical anymore. It's now mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, right? And it's beautiful. And I really feel privileged to be able to work with therapists who think that way, work with therapists who want say, come on in and talk about that energetic aspect, because it's not just about being a psychic either, right? I'm an energetic expert. So we can take a look at your home and go, hey, you know what? This feels a little crowded in here. Let's give you some space. That's going to help your mental state. Right? Let's take a look at what do you do for a living? Are you happy? What are you passionate about? This is all part of energetic work. This is all part of being psychic and intuitive because we all are. All I'm doing is saying, hey, let me align you with your own intuition. Ultimately, my job is to make my job obsolete.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because a lot of people, I would say, that don't understand the four pillars of health. They know the physical, right? I think that's what you can see, right? They may know the mental because mental health awareness has risen, especially since COVID. But the
Yes.
spiritual and the emotional, that's like because we can't, for a lot of people, they can't see it, they probably ignore it. What do you
Yes.
then think are some of the consequences of not being connected within themselves and with others?
Well, I'll give you a concrete example. My sister is what we call a dream walker. And she used to have these very vivid dreams. And one day she had a dream of something she said, I cannot talk about it. I don't ever want to talk about it because if I do, something bad could happen. And she basically asked for her abilities to be turned off. I don't want to see, I don't want to have dreams anymore. I don't. And she got very sick. She got really sick because when we don't address that part of ourselves, we're now again, we're misaligned. We're not addressing something internally and it has to come out externally. It's going to want to be there. So I find that, especially with young people today, because of the society we live in, with the computers and, the disconnect in that way, I find isolation tends to happen as well, right? And this again causes that mental illness because we're not being guided to use our intuition anymore. Everything's being fed to us, right? We're being so that connection that we're losing, even if you look at people, and not that there's anything wrong with this, but I notice a lot of people don't sleep together anymore. They sleep in separate rooms. Right? They live in separate houses and they still have a relationship. But one of the things that we know as energetics is a 20-second hug every day is actually connecting you to the other person and actually helps your health. When you sleep with your partner at night, that's 8 hours of energetic connection and sharing that you're doing without words, right? And these things keep us healthy. which also moves us into the idea of words and verbal communication. We're finding that a lot of people, especially younger and younger and younger, which is, I think, really exciting, they're not using, they don't feel the necessity for words. There is this really innate and unique connection that some kids are starting to form where they can just look at each other and you can feel the connection between them. You can feel the speech between them. So there are healthy ways that we are growing in our society, and there are unhealthy ways that we are also kind of nurturing in our society. So again, my job is to bring everybody into that balance. What does that look like? I can sit with someone, not have to speak, but still feel that connection. I can sit with someone and not have to use my computer all the time and have somebody upstairs and downstairs and text them, right? When they're in their bedroom upstairs, going upstairs and being there. So yeah, I really feel like that disconnect can be very harmful, but we have the opportunity to connect in other ways if we choose that. When we're disconnected, no, I mean that's really unhealthy when we're not sleeping in the same bed, we're not living in the same house, when we're using our technology. But if we're in the same room or the same house and we can sit quietly together, right, and just feel each other, that actually encourages our psychic abilities, that encourages our intuition.
There was a time where I remember reading it somewhere where it was shared that the reason why so many people can't sit with themselves is because their mind is too busy and they don't see the value in appreciating their own thoughts and their own time. When you mentioned that from an energetic perspective, we're no longer spending time with our partners, that 20-second hug, we're not getting it, the 8 hours with our partner, it's being missed out. What do you then think are maybe some of the distractions that is decreasing our value in those things and placing value into something else?
Work, money, technology, the propaganda that we're given that encourages worry and fear. One of the things that a lot of energetics will tell you is that we don't really watch the news. We don't really, the only news I tend to see is when my partner either gives me information or I'm at the gym. And so when I'm at the gym and I see something, it interesting, it resonates with me and I'll take that in. But for the most part, I'm very careful with what I feed myself. And I don't think we take care with what we feed ourselves. It's not just about feeding ourselves good food. It's about feeding ourselves good knowledge. It's about feeding ourselves good entertainment. Even when we're choosing our hobbies. What hobbies do we choose? Do we choose to play video games for how many hours a day? Not to say that I'm against them. Okay, I'm not, because I do love my shoot 'em up games. Sorry, I do. I'm not a pacifist that way. But but the amount of time we are spending doing these things that are distracting us. There's nothing wrong with television. There's nothing wrong with any of these things. But again, it's the amount of time. Again, it's all about, I'm a Gemini, right? So it's all about balance and distractions, especially mental distraction. That's a huge keynote for us. It is so hard for us to get out of our heads and into our bodies. One of the biggest thing about Geminis is our minds are always racing. And so, one of the challenges I've always had until recently has been, how do you turn off that chatter? How do you turn off that constant conversation that keeps me up at night? Right. And one of the things that I've realized that can help us with that distraction, no joke, when you go to bed at night, start to focus on your out breath. We always talk about the in breath. Take a deep breath in and let it out. But we're always focused on that in breath. And that in breath is the conscious world. When we focus on the out breath and we allow our breath to just completely evacuate and completely disperse, even when we think we've let go of everything, there's still a little bit there. The body will know when to take that in breath. When we completely exhale, we're actually connecting to our intuitive world. We're connecting to the other world. This is why we dream. This is one of the reasons we dream, because our breath, when we fall asleep, our body just takes over. right? And we breathe in a certain way that actually allows us to go deeper into our sleep states, right? But we can do that when we're awake. And if we focus on that out breath, all of a sudden we're going to find, and I did, the chatter turns off. We no longer need or feel the need for distraction of, cigarettes and smoking, or just hanging out with people because we don't want to be alone. All of a sudden, that one simple shift changes everything because we're not so focused now on that conscious world.
How can we see the value in those things?
That's an amazing question. I think seeing the value in the little things can be a challenge for a lot of people today, but I really believe that if we find the things we're passionate about and use them as a part of those exercises, then we will find value in it. So if I am working with the out breath, right, and allow myself to think about whatever it is I love to do, maybe it is work, right? Then all of a sudden it relaxes me, and what I think about work becomes a positive. When I think about that out breath, all of a sudden I might think about, and that might lead me to seeing a movie or seeing whatever. One thing leads to another. So I think for us to find the value in any of the exercises or the techniques that are shown, we have to tie something we love to it. Okay. That's always been the way I do things. So I homeschooled my son when he was very young, and we used a technique called Reggio Emilia technique, and it is an Italian technique. And it's based on the idea that you teach through a child's interests. So if my child is interested, and I'm kind of dating myself now, he loved Power Rangers. If he loved Power Rangers, you remember those, right? We would teach through Power Rangers. You have four Power Rangers, one of them gets annihilated. You have three Power Rangers. What do you do? So we did everything through that. And then one week he might be interested in trees. He might be interested in this or that. So we would teach through the things that he was passionate about. And I found that doing that expanded his interests. Oh, well, if I could be interested in that this week, what could I be interested in next week and where can that lead me? It was an amazing experience. So I believe as an adult, we still need to do that. We need to learn through the things we love, right? Anything we do needs to be something we're passionate about. There's this wonderful guy on Instagram. I'm not really, unfortunately, I'm not really into like the extraterrestrial, the interstellar stuff. That's just not my path and my journey. Not to say it doesn't exist. I do believe it does because I do have connected with things like that. But his name is Bashar. And he channels this interstellar being. And this one particular post that I saw really resonated with me. Whether he is or not is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is what he says resonates. And he said, live your excitement. Always live your excitement. And if you're living your excitement or you're living your passion, you're automatically taking that exhale and living that. You're automatically coming into that balance. So now it's not something that's forced or something you have to set aside a time for, right? Now you're actually living that
And
and
is
valuing it
living
and
and
valuing it.
is living that then difficult for some people to come to terms with, to accept?
It's choice. Um, the South Americans that I've worked with always taught me one thing. Life is as complex or as simple as we make it. And that seems like common sense. But for a lot of people, we need the reminder, right? Because we choose to live such complicated lives, because so many choose to live such complicated lives, to live that simplicity of, oh my God, all I have to do is like my day, wake up and smile and find something that makes me smile. Yeah, that can be challenging because you have all these other voices going, but. all these other voices going, but you have to toe the line. You have to live this certain way. You have to keep up with this. You have to keep up with technology. You have to keep up. So I don't think the challenge is in the choosing of it. I think the challenge is in the staying of that choice, making that choice and then being brave enough to say, I get it. This is who you are. This is who I am. It's making that choice that I'm going to live that simplicity, that I'm going to live my excitement, and I'm going to be courageous enough to be able to tell others that this is my lifestyle. This is who I am. And it's okay if you don't agree. It's okay that you think I'm crazy. It's okay that I'm wearing, a freak as a badge because that's my excitement. That's my joy. That's my simplicity. It wasn't easy for me to come out of the psychic closet. I remember walking around the house once and thinking to myself, oh my God, this is like crazy. What am I doing? This is insane. I'm a charlatan. And I remember that my son's dad walked in and he was good for about 10 minutes. He was happy. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he's like, oh my God, what you do is a joke and you're a freak. And then he turns around and he goes, you're a charlatan. And I went, he never uses that word. I'm the only, what? And I realized he was only voicing what I was saying to myself, what I was scared of living, what I wasn't voicing. And I made a commitment in that moment. From now on, I'm going to be who I am. I'm going to accept my choices, accept who I'm. And if you don't accept it, that's okay. I love you. It just means you're on a different path and you're not part of my circle anymore. And the second I made that choice, my entire friend circle changed, my entire life changed, and the way I raised my child changed. It was amazing. So I think it's a choice, but it's also standing by that choice.
I asked that because I went through something similar where I had to make choices and understand why I was making those choices. But more importantly for me, I had to realize I had the power to make the choice and stand by the choice. Do some people struggle with giving themselves enough self worth that they could stand by the choices they make?
So that's one of the things I love about my readings when I work one-on-one with people, whether it's via Zoom or in person, is people always leave my space and they say, I feel so much more empowered. I feel so much. I had one woman go, I feel so much more sovereign, because I feel like when someone comes into my space, that's the majority of my work is helping people find their worth through the work I do, through energy, through spirits, through guidance, through connecting with the ancestors. I find that a lot of people's self-worth are tied to things that are very material and physical. And when we come back to that emotional, spiritual self, all of a sudden there's a freedom in that, which allows us to feel empowered. So basically, I think in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that we're very good at the physical mental. Now, as we add that emotional, spiritual, we're going to find our freedom. We're going to find our sovereignty. We're going to find our empowerment. And that's where we find our self-worth, right? But we have to be courageous enough to take that journey because the other part of it too is that because we've been so inundated with this life and this society that we live in, things have to change. So when we make that commitment, things are going to look like they're falling apart at first, but they're actually falling together. Right. And this is something I preach all the time because people will go in, my relationship is ending. My friends are leaving me. Oh my God, I've lost my job. And I always turn to them, I go, congratulations. Thank God. Thank God. Because that means you're moving forward. Right. My teacher once said to me, I had an acting teacher, he's quite lovely man. And he said to me, and he goes, do you know, the best place you could possibly be is when you're in a place of conflict, a place of uncertainty, and a place of concern in your life, because it means you're moving forward. He goes, it's when you're complacent that you should worry. And I agree with that because the reality is when we change, and it doesn't always have to be like that, we do create our own conflict. Oh my God, I'm losing my job. Oh my God, what if I never find another house? Dude, this too shall pass. right? Every day is a new day. Every day is a rebirth. You have the opportunity to make a choice, right? And I might sound like some sort of empowerment guru, but the reality is that this is psychic work. This is our work. Our work is to connect to your ancestors, to remind you of where you came from, of the beautiful creatures that created you, the strength of your primal ancestors, your grandmothers, your great grandfathers, what they did for you that's still in you, right? And when you see that again, when you remember that again, boom, your world opens up. My grandmother made a commitment once. My grandfather was at war in World War II, and his battleship went down. And for a year, he went missing. She went to the church every day and she made a deal with God. She said, if he comes back, I will never wear gold again. I swear I will never do a small token, a small offering. After a year, my grandfather came back and he was the only survivor of this ship. I was a child when I heard that story, and I made that same commitment. I committed to only wearing silver so that the men in my family would always be protected. And I didn't just take it up as her mantle. I realized later on that it felt empowering. It felt strong for me to be able to do something my ancestor did that I'm doing for my men, for my family, right? Our ancestors are so powerful in our lives, and they're with us always. And the one thing I want to tell people while we're here, if you're going through a mental health crisis, if you feel like you're desperate and disparaging in your life right now, go to the water, go under the moon. It doesn't have to be a full moon. Call on your ancestors, cry with them, talk to them. Ask them for your help. I guarantee you they are listening, and you will see that your life will begin to change. And you don't even need to know which ancestor you're talking to. Just call on your ancestors. Whoever wants to be with me right now. Help me through this, guide me through this, and they will. And you will see you are not alone, because I find a lot of people who are in a place of depression, who are a place of confusion and conflict, usually feel very alone. You know, there's this aloneness. And I remember that feeling too. I remember feeling that alone. I remember walking along and thinking, I have no one with me. And then I remember seeing a raven, and he had a little branch, a willow branch in his mouth, almost like the dove of peace with the olive branch. And I remember for whatever reason thinking, oh my God, I'm not alone. And it hit me, the water is my sister. The stones have stories that are thousands of years old, and they're with me. The sun is my brother. It's like all of a sudden, all of nature became a part of me, and I no longer felt alone. That was me, right? Others will have other ways of connecting to their ancestors because we're never alone.
I look back, Angel, on my life, and sometimes looking back at your past can be scary. It
Yeah,
can be a reminder of things that, you know what, I didn't like that version of me. That version of terrain, ugh, I can't believe I was that way, right? And when
yeah,
you mentioned Power Rangers, that was like a big source of I can be a Power Ranger. I
that's
can
right.
be something strong. There was a study that was done where there are students that were struggling, young children, and what they did was they dressed them up in costumes, superheroes. They
Mhm.
felt empowered. They felt like they can do anything. When it comes to the work that you're doing, what are some of the ways that you empower people to overcome something that they maybe thought was impossible?
One of the things that I do with people is I try to connect them to their own intuition. So I will challenge them that there's an exercise that we do. I will challenge them and I will say before, and anybody can do this, even your listeners and your viewers can do this. When you wake up in the morning, before you open your eyes, I challenge you. Say these words. Today, my day is easy and effortless. Today, I feel empowered and my world is filled with joy, or something to that effect. You will find that you will have more energy. you will find that your day will become easy. You will find that you will have more focus. The other thing I tell people is get a little candle. And on that candle, I want you to write ancestors. A little white candle. It can be a tea candle. Just write ancestors. And I want you to light that candle and I want you to sit with it and I want you to call on your ancestors and then do nothing and see what you feel. And these are some of the things that actually make feel people have come back to me and said it changed my life. Like within days, I started to feel better, stronger, more empowered. Just those little tiny things. In my office, in the moment when I'm reading, just connecting them to the other side and giving them the validation that the other side exists, that in of itself is empowering. That in itself, people kind of go, they go, wow, there is more than just this life. There is more than just this tangible skin that I live in, right? When I'm able to give that evidence to people through my reading that their mom or their dad is still around, all of a sudden I see people not feel weak anymore. They feel like they're surrounded by that love. You know, I have one woman, she was so tied to her mother, like everything about her life was tied to her mother from A to Z. And when her mother came through, she gave me some things I couldn't possibly know. And when I gave that to her daughter, she broke down crying. And that release to know that her mother was still there was massive, massive. Women who come in and men, I'm not gonna discount them. Women and men who come in who say to me, you know, I'm unlovable. You know, I seem to have a problem finding a partner, and I know it's me. You know, there are so many things about us that we don't realize just those words are holding the relationship away from you. So we talk about maybe reframing your words, how you talk to yourself, what your self-talk is. Sometimes it's not just about psychic work, it's about listening, right? It's about being able to, and then what I'll do, because I use this with my clients, I don't necessarily need them, I use my cards, and that will validate the things I'm saying, right? Watching your words or doing this or moving in this. So by the time they leave, they have enough evidence in front of them and feel empowered enough to move forward because of the things I've given them in our session to go, yes, today is day one.
When they come face to face with what you just shared and they say to themselves or they acknowledge that, Angel, I am the problem. I need to change. I
Mhm.
can see clearly now the rain is gone, right?
Yeah.
Everything makes sense. That next step, is that scary for them to take?
I've not encountered anyone who has left my space that has felt the fear of moving forward. I think, I feel like people just need permission, validation, and a sense of being seen. And when they get that, all of a sudden, walking through that door of change doesn't seem as scary anymore. You know, one of the things I talk about with some of my more esoteric friends, and as you can see, I love my deep knowledges, as you can see with Harriet over here. Um, we talk about the idea of hell being a prison whose gates are open. You know, for me, hell is a prison that we go to if we are not accountable for our own actions. But the moment we turn around and we say, I'm accountable, I'm taking responsibility, all of a sudden those gates open and we're free to go to the light. And now, if we look at that in practical terms, we create our own hell on earth, right? We create our own existence, we create our lives. So at any point in time, we can turn around and say, look, you know what? I am responsible for what I did. I put myself in this place. And there's a sense of freedom that comes with it. Is it a scary step? It can be for some people. But again, I've noticed that people who work with the psychic realm, people who work with their intuition, I don't find that that step is as hard. I really don't. And I find that counselors who are very wholly rounded say the same thing, that once we connect the mental and physical with the emotional and spiritual, all of a sudden there's this revelation, this aha moment that happens in a moment, because we're willing to take responsibility because it feels so damn good. Right? I mean, all of us, Terrain, you were saying that earlier, when we look at other versions of ourselves that we don't like, especially as we get older, we can look back at that. I bless those versions of me because that person, that idiot that I was, made me who I am today. I look back on that and I go, look at us now. Thank you for that learning. Someone said to me once, it was really interesting. He goes, how do you live with yourself? I was a seedy producer who would do anything to get what I needed to put a show on the stage. That's what I did, right? The cheating, the lies, that I would do anything. And he said it to me once. He goes, "What? How do you look at yourself?" And I remember going in the washroom and looking at myself and I'm like, I can't do this. I can't be this anymore. And that one moment of, wow, I'm going to take responsibility for my actions. And I actually went out, it was so scary. I went out and I apologized to some of the people that I hurt, some of the people that I cheated, some of the people, and in almost every circumstance, it turned out very well. And in the circumstances that it didn't, where I got an earful, I deserved it, right? But that version of myself has now made me the producer that I am, someone who I feel is gracious, somebody who will do anything to make an actor feel good, someone who will say, let's work together so that we can make this the best production and I can publicize your thing and let's play. Let's enjoy this ride. I wouldn't be this if I didn't understand that. And sometimes, all the time, I think if we see the darkness, it's to help us become the light that we're meant to be.
And I will agree with that because I think sometimes we look at our past self and we get mad, not knowing our future self is thanking us for what we went through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Would you agree with that?
It's so funny you say that. I had this, and I was going to Instagram it. I had this thought the other day, the other week, and I was sitting there and I was going to put out this post to every kid out there, every teenager and every child. You need to hear this. If you feel like crap, if you're going through something really bad right now, just know that your adult self is standing right behind you right now with their hand on your shoulder, letting you know that you're going to be okay. Just know that yourself, when you're an adult, is rocking it and that you're going to be just fine. And I say that because I remember being in a duathlon because I love riding my bike. And I don't like water, so I don't do triathlons. But I was doing a duathlon, and I remember on the second lap of that bike ride, all of a sudden I was in tears, going, "Look at where we are." And I was talking to my inner child. How new agey, right? Very new agey. But I was talking to my inner child, going, "Oh my God, look at us. Look at us. Look at how far we've come. You were that scrawny little kid who couldn't run, who always got the bronze in Canada Fitness Day and doing all that stuff at school. Look at us now." And you know what's really funny? It was the first duathlon I ever did. And I came in third in my division. It was amazing. I healed. I won on so many levels, all because I was telling my inner child that I was right there. But what I'm convinced of now was that moment, my inner child, that child I was at that age at 7, was probably hearing me at that moment. My spirit was there because I believe that our spirits are not linear creatures, they're liminal. I can be here. I can be 10,000 years in the future. I can be behind me. I can be anywhere. An angel is made an angel, and they can be anywhere, anytime, any place, right? People have said to me, "Who are you to work with Archangel Michael?" I'm not. He's an angel. He can do whatever he wants. We're made in the likeness of divinity. Therefore, we can be similar. So that means that my adult self may have, in that moment, as far fetched as that seems, talking to that 7-year-old little girl. And that 7-year-old little girl who still exists somewhere in some timeline heard that, right? I truly believe that. I truly believe that our young selves are still connected to our adult selves and vice versa.
Could that be then sometimes you will see an adult react emotionally to something and they're not able to explain it initially?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because what they're doing is they're tying in to that child that they were who still exists, right? I have had people come to me and they've said to me, I will be walking and for no reason whatsoever, all of a sudden I will smell the flowers in my grandfather's garden, but I know it's not my grandfather because he's not dead. And I'll go, no, you're actually connecting to your child who still exists and they need you right now, and you're with them and you just don't even realize it. Like there's so much happening on an energetic level, nuances and things that are moving in tandem with each other that we don't understand, right? Like there are so many there is this theory of the multiverse. There are so many things happening all at once. And I truly believe that. I truly do. So when we talk about, connecting with that inner child, I truly believe it's about reconnecting to an actual timeline, not in every circumstance, but in some circumstances, when we're going through stuff, we're calling on that child to help us as much as we're there to help them in their hard times.
For, for me, anytime I watch a movie and I see someone who isn't doing well in life get bullied for
Mm,
a long time, Angel, it used to make me cry.
yeah.
And I had no idea why until I spoke to someone like you and they said that it's quite possible that you either saw something when you were a child or you experienced something as a child. And that's why I asked that question because I couldn't explain it because it's one of the few times in my life where it's like uncontrollable tears. Like it's like, oh
Yeah.
my God, that's so bad, right?
Yeah.
And then I remember a time where I saw an older lady fall down as she was getting on the bus. She slipped on some ice and she was hurt. And no one helped. And people kind of poked fun. So, in a sense, she was being bullied. And I felt so bad. I didn't know this person,
Yeah.
but it ties back to that experience. And when I helped her, it made me feel really good, like I accomplished something, even though, in the grand scheme of things, at least in my mind, it was a small act, not knowing how big of an act it was to me. What are your
So,
thoughts on that?
so as a child, take yourself back there for a second. As a child, why did you make that choice in that moment to go and help her? What made you do that? Was it a feeling? Was it a whisper in your ear? What was it in that moment, if you can remember, that made you, what was the catalyst that made you go help her?
I felt, looking back, I felt that it was my responsibility.
But why? What put that in your little head?
I looked at her.
That's a very big thought to have for such a little kid.
It is, it is. Well, I was in my teenage years, but yeah, like it was, I looked at her and I thought of my grandmother who raised me as a kid. And then I thought, what if my grandmother were to fall and she wasn't able to help herself? And then it made me feel that I had to be responsible, just like how I would hope someone would be responsible to help her.
But it's interesting because even as a teenager, there are teenagers who think that way and teenagers who don't. Your adult self in that moment was there with you, pushing you. That's a theory. I'm not saying that's actually what's happening, but your adult self was already with you. As adults, we say we have an inner child. As a child, we have our inner adult. And your adult stood there with you and went, this is what you need to do. Go do it. Right. And that's an exciting thing. Um, for me as a child, I literally, not figuratively, would have whispers in my ear. So I was on a trolley car in Toronto, and a man was having a seizure. And he fell to the ground, and nobody was doing anything because they didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I was just a teenager. And all of a sudden, something went, go to him. And I went over, out of everybody, I went over and they said, put your hand underneath his neck. And I did. And they went, lift it. And I lifted, the guy was turning blue. And I lifted it. And all of a sudden, he started to breathe. He just started to breathe. And I went, oh my God. And it wasn't until years later, like I never thought of it. I just left. As soon as those doors opened, I left. And I never thought about it again until I was taking a course in I did some search and rescue. So some search and rescue, I did some stuff, whatever. And they were talking about something similar. I went, oh my God. And all of a sudden I was back there in that subway station. I am convinced to this day that that was my adult self that had that information, who was coming to talk to my young self and go, do this. This is what you need to do. 911, really good example. When 911 happened, a lot of people had said that they saw angels who helped them, get out of their situation or what have you. And there were other people who had said, it was like I was there. I had a dream and I was at this building and I was helping people and what have you. What if the angels that we saw, another theory, what if the angels that we saw were people who are actually able to, again, new agey story, astral travel to that place who are on that vibration to help the others? What if we're all so connected that when we're suffering, when there's trauma, when there's conflict, that our spirits actually go and help, right? And if we can do that, why can't we go back and help our inner child? Why can't we go back and help those kids that we were? I know this is a really weird conversation, and I apologize, but it's a new way of thinking. And that's the one thing I've learned is I've actually learned this year that I'm here to talk about things that are very unique and very different and give different perspectives. And it's, hosts like you who give me that platform that I'm extremely grateful for.
You've intrigued me because now I'm thinking when there is an event as chaotic, as traumatic as it can be, and you're in that moment and you're getting information, who's to say that information is not your future self telling you what to do?
Right? I had a creepy experience that made me run for the hills. I was playing with, and I do not recommend this for anybody, so I just tell this as a story. I was playing with what's called mirror magic. And mirror magic can be very dangerous because it opens doors. This is what a lot of people believe. Like in seances, you'll see that they'll actually cover the mirrors because they create gateways. So, anyway, younger, not very bright, working with mirror magic. I had the candle in front of the mirror and I looked into the mirror and I saw this woman, and it was half of my face had become this woman. And it was an older woman and she had my hair, but she was older and I could see her. And all of a sudden I heard, I'm you. And it scared me to the point where I got up and I ran. I ran so far, so fast. When I calmed down and I had, I was sitting there with my tequila and I'm sitting there kind of going over this event, I went, wait a second, she looked just like me. And then I went through some pictures of my grandmother and my grandmother's grandmother. And I found a woman 3 generations back that looked exactly like her. And I went, that's not her, though. That was me. I'm convinced that that was me from the future. I am so convinced of that. And yeah, it makes me sound crazy. I work freak like a Brad. Accept me or don't. It goes right back to that conversation.
I'm happy for that because you've opened my mind to thinking in different ways because I can point to events in my life where I'm like, how did I think why did I get that thought? Why did I think that way? So when it comes to the energetic aspect of our lives, right? How do we then begin to tap into it or at least understand it if we can?
So the first thing is that we're particularly myopic because our society's taught us that the information can only come from guides, guardians, angels, archangels, ancestors. This is what we think we're tapping into, but there is a whole limitless, vast universe of things that can help us to bring messages through or help guide our lives. And as we've been talking about, our future selves, our past selves, ourselves helping those other timelines, that's all part and parcel. How do we tap into this? Oh my God, it's so simple. The reality is, we've been taught that only the gifted are allowed to do this. Only those people who are born this way, or some people have this turned on in their brain. No, we're all like this. Some of us do have it turned on a little higher than others. Think of a radio, the volume is on a little bit more. But we all have the ability to tap into this, to hone this. And the way we do this is two things. One, we are born of nature. And because we're born of nature, we have to stay connected to nature. And so being in nature is important. And so being out in the forest, out by the water, bringing that into our homes, as you can see, bringing that into our homes is really important. Staying connected to the elements because we're elemental. We are 89% water. Keeping tied into that is really important. And the other thing that's excessively important is knowing yourself. Because when we know ourselves, we know what it feels like when we're sad, what it feels like when we're angry, what it feels like when we're disconnected, right? When we know ourselves in our own emotional state, what our value systems are, what our belief systems are, when we're encountered with other energies, we can automatically go, "Whoa, wait, that wasn't me. Hold on, that's not my angry," right? So knowing yourself is really, really important. The other thing that is really important in this path, and I don't care what anybody says, is drinking water keeps a connection open. And it's a physiological thing. We have neurons in our brains that when we're dehydrated, they actually don't connect. But when we're hydrated, they actually do, and they spark. And that creates a beautiful connection. I do believe that connecting the mind, body, and spirit is really important. So, doing simple things in life like exercising, things like yoga or going to the gym or doing that, it keeps you in a mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual balance. So these are important things that actually hone our intuition. And the biggest thing that I've learned, and this is probably my biggest teaching right now, is there's no such thing as developing your intuitive abilities. They're already there. Okay. What we need to do is develop our confidence in our abilities, our confidence that what we had just experienced was intuitive, our confidence in what we're getting and following that guidance. So, listening to that niggling in the back of our head or in the pit of our stomach, dismissing nothing, as long as you're not hurting yourself or anyone else, don't dismiss it. And the thing that's the hardest thing to do for people, act on it. Okay. Listen, dismiss nothing, and act on it. For me, dismissing is the hardest thing. I can listen and I can act on it, but my skeptic self goes, but did it really happen? Right? And some people will have a hard time with acting on it. That's the majority of us because we don't want to be judged. We don't want to be looked at as we're crazy, right? We don't want to have people look at us and go, I don't want to be a part of that person. We don't want to be isolated. Right? So again, it's that whole idea of standing in your convictions, knowing your truth, understanding and knowing who you are, and building that confidence that, hey, what I just experienced was something that was beyond. And here's the kicker. Want to know the real trick of all of this? If you're experiencing something and you're with people, 9 times out of 10, at least one or two of those people are experiencing it too. And if you voice it, they're going to have the courage to voice it. Okay. And the reality is not everybody's going to experience the same thing because we're vibrational. So if you experience something and somebody else doesn't make you crazy, doesn't make them crazy. It just means you're on two different vibes. This is why I like working with other psychics, because if I get something vibrationally, they might get something too, and it fills in the gaps and it creates a story, right? So these are some of the things to become aware of and acknowledge. Acknowledge the fact that your skills are already developed. You just have to find out what your forte is. Are you a dreamer, right? Are you an animal communicator? Are you a healer? Once you've defined that, then it's about building your confidence in that. right? Dismiss nothing, listen, and acknowledge and act on it. Those are very important things. These are the things that I teach in my classes, right? And that's one of the reasons I love like being on Instagram. It's one of my favorite places and doing like Zoom classes. I do like free Zoom classes for people because I like to share. I like to do this.
So, Angel, let me ask you then, as we're tapping into our energy and understanding it, especially the value, how it makes us more worthy of the new life that we're going to get, can the energy of someone else, let's say our partners, impact our journey?
Oh, absolutely. I'm so happy you brought that up. Growing up, I was always taught, and like most of us are, is be careful the friends you keep, right? And this isn't just because some people can be bad news, because sometimes, even if they're wonderful people, maybe their energy isn't conducive to you, right? They could be the most wonderful people in the world, but because their energy is going in a different direction, they can pull you in a direction that's not necessarily on your path. So yeah, I feel like even, the idea of a husband, a wife, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, these things are really, really important to be careful with because you're integrating your energy with them, even your abilities. When you are with somebody, your psychic ability, let's say I'm an animal communicator and they are a dream walker. Okay, so they can have lucid dreams or what have you. All of a sudden, I could start having lucid dreams and they could start hearing animals better, right? Because you're integrating your energies. And because you're integrating your energies, you guys are saying, hey, listen, I want to be a part of you. You want to be a part of me. Let's open our channels to each other, right? And then when we have the intimacy, that opens you up as well. That's a whole nother psychic and esoteric and energetic connection, right? The friends that you keep can either drag you down or they can build you up. And this is one of the reasons we, again, have to know ourselves, know our truths, and be able to have the courage to express it, right? When we have that courage to say, listen, this is who I am, this is comfortable, this is not comfortable, then we see who our true friends are. This is when we see who our true intimates are. When we know what we want and we know who we are, others will too. And we will energetically call our tribe. Our tribe is our vibe. I love that saying. Our tribe is our vibe. When we're saying that, we're saying, hey, listen, you know what? This is the energetic level that I want to be at. And if it's down here, well, then that's what you're going to attract. If it's up here, then that's what you're going to attract. And you can change it like this. I know someone who is known as a charmed one. And a charmed one can have anything he wants ever. This is what they are. If they say, I want an ice cream, three people will come with three ice creams. I've seen it. I've seen it. It's amazing. So my son is a charmed one. When he was a little boy, I will tell you this story. It's so funny. He wanted this toy. It was like a fishy with a magnet on it a fishing rod with a magnet on it for fishies. And I said, no, you have enough toys for three children. We're drawing a line. You're not getting this thing. So he's crying all day. I take him to a restaurant, and I'll never forget this. He was so disheveled. His poor little hair was everywhere, and he was crying, a little puppy face. And in the back of this restaurant, there was a children's party, and there was a clown, and the clown had left, and the waiter had seen what had happened. So he went and got the clown from his car, and the clown came to our table, and he goes, little boy, he goes, what would you want? And he looked at me, he goes, Mommy, I said, don't say it. And he goes, I don't know. And the clown turned around, and he had a balloon. He goes, let me see, what am I going to do for you? So what does this guy make? Ooh, to this day. He made a fishing rod out of a balloon with a fish on it. And my son looked at me and he smiled, this toothy grin. And I said, how did you do that? And I'll never forget it. He looked at me. He's 21 now. He looked at me, at this little boy, and he said, I'm magic, Mommy. And I said, yes, yes, you are. But I taught him just because you can have it doesn't mean you should. So there are people out there who can have whatever they want in this lifetime. But, oh my God, I'm sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Why did I even bring that up? Why did I bring that up? I brought it up because, oh, it
Because you
ties back
want
to something we were
it tie
talking.
yeah, it ties into our partner's energy impacting
Yes,
our energy.
yes, that's right. So the reality is that we can have whatever we want in life. But it doesn't mean we should have it. We have to be very careful with the energies we keep around us. We have to be very careful just because we say, oh, you know what? I want to be rich and famous in life. I want to do this. And we put all that in and we attract those people. Doesn't mean it's best energy, right? We have to be very self-aware. We have to be very much in our own vibe. What is our truth? And that's what it always comes back down to. Our truth, being accountable, acknowledging. And when we do that, then we bring the right people to us.
How does then self-sabotage impact someone's energetic journey?
Huge, huge. A lot of the mental illness that we see today is self-sabotage. A lot of it. When I look around at young people right now, the need to fit in is so great because of the aloneness that they feel that they will do anything to feel like they're a part of something. And so they will have, some of them will have amazing lives and then go, but I need to fit in. So I have to do X, Y, and Z. And they will give up everything. They will self-sabotage just to be part of a certain friend group, right? Or to fit in or to not feel alone, right? And that whole idea of alone is huge. It's massive. And yeah, we self-sabotage energetically. What we'll do is we'll say, I want this, I want this, I want this. We get it. And then we go, oh my God. And then we run the other way, right? Not realizing that we've already put the energy into it. We're getting what we want. We always, people, listen to me. We are always getting what we want. So if you think something bad is happening in your life right now, sit down, reevaluate what you really want. What you feel becomes real. Thoughts are things, but what you feel becomes real. Whatever you are feeling right in this moment, you are creating it. And it's not going to happen like that. Energy follows energy. So if I have a really, really bad day today, in 3 or 4 days, I might have, or let's say I feel really sad today and I've had a really sad day. In 3 or 4 days, that energy is going to catch up and I might have a really crappy day. Right? If I'm feeling very down about myself today and I say, oh my God, you're such an idiot, you're such a klutz, you're such this, you're such a, in 3 or 4 days, I might have an accident. I might fall down the stairs. I might start, whatever the case might be. Energy doesn't necessarily happen in that moment. Sometimes it takes days to catch up. Okay. So understand self-sabotage isn't something that you're doing right in that moment. You might say something stupid, but you know what? 3 or 4 days later is when you're really going to get a kick in the butt energetically. That's when you're going to have your energetic hangover. You're going to wake up and go, oh my God, what did I do? And then three more things like that could happen. Okay. It's energy is an amazing thing. One of the things that we've realized is that when a star explodes, we're not actually seeing the star explode in that moment. That star could have exploded a month ago or a year ago. But because of the speed of light, we're actually seeing it later on. That's energy. That's the way it works. When we put the energy out there, it's going to come back to us, but it may not come back to us the way we think or in the moment we think it will. Okay, so self-sabotage, that's a dangerous game you play, right? Because it may not hit you the way you think it's going to hit you or in the timeline.
Yeah, some people think they have control until when it hits the fan, they realize how very little control they actually have.
I agree with that. And they created it themselves, right? They did this to themselves. So if you say to yourself, so here's a really good example. For a year, I spent every day not wanting to be here. And I remember one day lying on my bed and I said, I'm going to play a game. Let's see how far we can take this. If we can manifest for ourselves, let's see how much we can manifest. And every day I asked, I don't want to wake up. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. Every single day I begged for it. And one year I landed in the hospital in emergency surgery. And I heard when I was on the gurney, do you want to live or do you want to die? And I remember seeing my son and I went, no, I want to live. Game is over. I played the game, you win. When they went in, they even told me, said, you have 50-50 chance of living. When they went in, they found cancer. And I thought, I did that. I did. Now, that's not to say everybody does. Okay. I'm not saying that, but I am accountable for the game I played. And it was really interesting because they got everything in that surgery, but then they said to me they left two lymph nodes accidentally. They missed it. And I was so angry. And I said, you know what? If you're so good and you're so great, and I learned my lesson, why is this happening? So they showed me a woman with black hair, and they showed me a man that I was supposed to help. So, all right. So it was near Halloween, and they said, we don't have anywhere for you to do this operation, but we'll put you on the waiting list for the new year. And I'm like, oh, okay. 2 days later, I get a call. How would you like to have your operation on Halloween night? And they knew what I did for a living. So we were all laughing. I'm like, yeah, sign me up. So in order to do that, I had to go through like the anesthesia session and all that kind of thing. And there was a nurse there and her hair was black, black as night. And I remember noting that as I walked in, but it didn't really hit me. I just kind of dismissed it. And we were talking, and she says to me, she was trying to make a joke because it was close to Halloween. She goes, well, it's a good thing that you're talking because the dead don't talk. And I'm like, okay, shut up, Angel, shut up, Angel, shut up, Angel, shut up, Angel. And I thought, well, actually, they do. And we started talking. I told her what I did for a living. She goes, listen, she goes, I know this is really inappropriate. And she closed the door. She goes, but my mom just passed away. She goes, I was wondering if you can connect her. And I said, but it's your dad who's here. And she started crying. And I said, he wants you to know that it's okay the way he died. And she looked at me and she goes, well, that my dad died 3 days before my wedding 30 years ago. And I'm a nurse, and my sister was a doctor, and we couldn't stop it. He died of a heart attack. And we've held that guilt this entire time. She goes, you've changed our lives. And that's what I heard in the car. In the car, I heard, you're going to change their lives. Because of that moment, I was supposed to be on a ward, and I was put into a room that was a semi-private room, and I knew she had something to do with it. So I'm lying there, and there was a man beside me, and this man had been treated so badly that night. I will never forget. It was right after my surgery, and he was basically catatonic. Like he wasn't responding, nothing. But the way they treated him that night was just awful. So the next morning, I hobbled over to the woman and to the head nurse, and I talked to her and I told her what had happened. She was so angry. They had told me later that they basically dismissed that whole team and they brought in a whole new team. That night, the next 2 nights, completely different human being. He started to come out of it. And I'm like, oh my God. And then all I remember hearing the night I got home was, do you get it now? And I'm like, yes, I get it. I don't ever want to play that game again, but I understand that there's a journey that all of us are connected to, right? That I had my purpose in going on that journey too. So I thank you, right? Energy follows energy. For a full year, I put energy into that. But I also learned something else. If you can manifest dying, you can manifest life. You can manifest strong life. You can manifest long life. You can manifest healing. You can manifest everything. We are our own apothecaries. We can manifest anything we want, but don't expect it to happen like that. Don't expect that because that's not going to, because that's what people want. They want the quick fix. A lot of people come to me because they want a quick fix. Tell me what's going to happen. Show me what my fate's going to be. Show me this. You know what? I'm going to show you what a path in your fate is, but it's the future. So you step to the left, you step to the right. You can change it. You can change that fate. It's not going to make it worse, not going to make it better, but it's going to make it different. So I will help you, but you got to help yourself because I'm a healer. I'm not here to do the work for you.
They want it right away. It's like going online and get a booty in 90 days, right? They want it quick and easy without putting in the work. When you outline the journey for them and they're making progression, what are maybe some of the setbacks that you help people overcome as they're moving along?
So one of the biggest things that we've noted with the work that we do is sometime when you're, again, here's a new agey term, an ascension, or you're going to the next level of who you are, especially with your abilities, there's a stasis point. So a lot of people will come in and go, I was doing what you said, and then all of a sudden I can't hear my guides anymore. I feel like I'm disconnected. I don't feel like I can hear anything. So I'm just going to close this door. So my puppies are playing. I can hear them. And so what will happen is that you come to a what we call the healing crisis. You're moving forward, you're moving forward, you're moving forward, and all of a sudden it feels like everything's stopping. You can't hear, you can't see, you can't. No, that's the quiet before the storm. That's the quiet before all of a sudden you're going to see a ghost in front of you, right? When people are in that place of, I have come so far and I feel like I can't go any further because nothing seems to be happening, that's the point at which I say, do nothing. And that's okay, right? I had a woman just this morning and she kept going, yeah, but I need guidance. Yeah, but I need guidance. That is the guidance. Sit still, do nothing. Go have a cappuccino. Chill out for a week. Relax. Because sometimes you need time to integrate. The growth process is happening inside you just because you can't see it. Again, there's that tangible, the evidence that we need, doesn't mean it isn't happening. Doesn't mean there isn't something moving inside of you, right? So, what we tell people is practice do nothings. Go do nothing. Go take a week off work or go just, when you're not at work, go and do nothing. Go watch a movie, go for a walk, go do something that is a nothing, right? Just sit, just go lie down. It's one of the hardest things to do. And she
Just
goes,
being with yourself seems to be difficult for a lot of people to do.
yeah. But yet, again, going right back to what we were talking about before, it's so easy because in that time that you're doing nothing, your passions will start to bubble up. Oh, I feel like doing this. I feel like doing that. My greatest advice to anybody when I tell them to do nothing is go home, do nothing, and ask one question. What's next? Then do nothing and see what your impulse is. Follow your feel, right? Go lie down, do nothing, and ask what's next. Then follow that guidance. And then when you're done, what's next? Then follow that guidance. And what's next? Then follow that guidance. And then when you have nothing else to do and it's like there's nothing coming to you, you say, what's next? And it's blank. Go lie down. Go chill. Do nothing. It is. It's
An-
different.
Angel, let me ask you one final question before I let you go.
Please do.
I want to give you three wishes, and these are three things you wish people knew about this question, okay?
Okay. I think I understand.
What are three things you wish people knew about the importance of energy work in all areas of their life and why?
Speaking your truth is the ultimate in energy work. From truth comes love. From truth comes openness. From truth comes freedom. From truth comes courage. Sitting in your truth is the key to not only psychic work and intuitive work, but to living your best, most healthy, most balanced, most blessed life.